Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on Packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. You can email us, PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. You can text us 865-658-5824. Flying solo this morning, little surprise podcast as we've got some nasty weather rolling through. So just want to give a forewarning here. The electricity could go out at any moment. So if the stream drops, just know what that was. All right. But we're going to talk a little Packers. Got some questions from the Patreon community. We've also got some stuff I want to dive into defensively. There's been a lot of talking points on, right? And how well is this defense doing? What are they performing well at? Is it man coverage? Is it zone? All the misconceptions that we hear throughout social media and on YouTube as well. We'll kind of dive into some of those numbers. This is what we're dealing with, gang, right now. That's my current location. So it's coming from east to west. Like I said, if the power goes out, if the stream drops, you know what happened. All right. But we're safe and sound, though. We've one of the things about the home that I purchased here, the guy who built it's from Louisiana. And I got 2 inspectors to look at this place. And obviously we don't get crazy storms in Tennessee very often. But the 2 inspectors I got to look at, they're like, you realize this guy did put hurricane clips on your house? I was like, hey, that's a good thing. So ours will probably be the last one standing in the neighborhood if something does happen, but the creek is getting kind of high, so you may see the camera go floating by here in a second. But give a shout out real quick to everybody in the chat. We got Omer in the house. We got Mike Berry, Andy Watkins from Illinois. Good stuff, man. Let's see, Mountain Man Pack. Good morning, buddy. Chris in the house. Professor Cakes. Good morning to you, sir. So let's dive into some stuff real quick. We kind of hit on the standings a little bit yesterday. I like to do this from week to week and just kind of get a grab of where the NFC is. This is the National Football Conference standings. The Packers are currently sitting in the number 8 spot. Obviously, what you've got is a whole bunch of 2-1 teams that are kind of in the playoffs right now. I know it's silly to even think about that this early in the season, but I like to kind of keep a grab on it because to me it makes the season more exciting knowing what the matchups are this current week and what teams may be above you or right below you that you want to key in on when the Packers aren't playing, right? So essentially the NFC standings right now, Minnesota Vikings number 1, Seattle Seahawks number 2. They're both the only 2 3-0 teams in the NFC, okay? In the number 3 spot, I say tied for 3rd, but they've got them ranked by tiebreaker here. So this is the actual order in which they sit in the National Football Conference standings. You got the Saints in the 3 spot, Commanders in the 4, Tampa Bay Buccaneers 5th, Philadelphia Eagles 6th, Detroit Lions 7th, and the Green Bay Packers 8th. Now, I did grab this screen grab before last night's game, so I'm trying to think of who played. The Cowboys beat the Giants, so the Cowboys are now 2-2, so they would be leading. They'd probably be sitting in the number 9 spot, if that makes sense. So, obviously, with the Detroit Lions in the 7th spot, the Green Bay Packers in the 8th spot, that's how that's sitting currently. Again, Minnesota Vikings, that's the matchup this Sunday. Really excited to watch that one as the Packers will try to knock off the undefeated Minnesota Vikings. And if they do, obviously, the tiebreaker would go to Green Bay, I'm pretty sure, with the head-to-head matchup there. So we would now be leading in the division, or probably the Detroit Lions would if they end up winning. So let's talk about where are they playing this week? They're going to be the Monday Night Football game, one of the doubleheaders. It's going to be the 8:15 Eastern kickoff. Seattle travels to Detroit. That's going to be a hell of a ball game. As you can see here, Seattle is the other undefeated team so far, sitting at 3-0. They got that thing humming up there. And again, it's going to be a great game, I think. Detroit's going to come to play. They're on their home turf. Going to be a lot of fun to watch that one unfold. Boy, we have some stuff smacking the window right now. Let's go. All right, so the other thing I want to point out here, look at Tampa Bay, right? Tampa Bay, let's see where they're sitting. Obviously, in the standings, they're sitting in the number 5 spot. Who do they play this week? The Tampa Bay Buccaneers play the Philadelphia Eagles. All right, so you've got the Eagles. You basically got the number 5 and number 6 team going head-to-head in the NFC this week, and that is at Tampa Bay, I believe. Yeah, and you've got these storms that are just rolling through, so we'll see how much damage, if any, is done to Tampa. I'm not sure geographically how close they are to the Gulf there and where I think they're on the Gulf side, so they're probably getting at least some of this residual weather. Hopefully that doesn't delay that game at all, and everybody's safe down there, obviously. That's first and foremost without saying. So Tampa Bay, Philadelphia would be a game to keep an eye on. The only problem is they're in the 1 o'clock window, just like the Packers, right? The other one is the LA Rams at the Chicago Bears. I've really enjoyed watching the Bears games this year. Just watching them fall flat on their face has been hilarious. And Caleb Williams just kind of my big scouting report on Caleb Williams is elite arm talent. He's got a cannon for an arm, right? And he could throw off platform and do it fairly accurate at times. So the arm talent's there. You guys know I've been very outspoken. The issue with Caleb Williams, in my opinion, is can he be a leader, right? And I've posted and talked about the video of him climbing into the stands with his mother and crying into her arms. And people take it the wrong way when I mention that. I'm not mentioning that like, look, he's soft. He needed his mommy. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying when you lose a tough game, as the leader of your team, your number one focus should be your teammates. Your number one focus should be your coaching staff too. Like if you want to try to grab any kind of positive out of a horrible situation with a huge loss, you should be able to go, or as a leader, you should want to go rally around your team and be the guy that they can look to. You be the guy to pick them up. I don't care if it's even the last game of the season, the last game of your college career. To me, it says a lot about a player that when you hit your lowest point, it's not how can I build someone else up? It's I want my mom. What are we doing? And again, whether you think that's okay or not, that's okay. We can all have differing opinions on that. What do you think the locker room is saying? And this is where people go, Clayton, he's not in college anymore. It doesn't matter. Yes, it does. Do you think every teammate in that Chicago Bears locker room didn't see that? Those are the things that come into play. And also, to me, it kind of takes you behind the mindset of someone. How do they handle adversity? That's not a good way of handling adversity, right? The other thing is the painting of the nails. People say that's feminine. That's why you don't like it. No, it has nothing. I could care less what someone's personal preference is when it comes to relationships and stuff. If he does, go that way with his personal life, that's his business. That ain't nobody's business, right? What I'm saying is it screams, I want attention. That's the problem I have with it. And once again, whether you think that's okay for a player to do that or not, that's all right. We can disagree. But what are the teammates thinking? Because I guarantee you there's people in there going, boy, this guy likes the limelight, doesn't he? It's not about winning games. It's about how can I get attention? How can I get endorsement? People were laughing, talking about when you drive into L.A., there's huge billboards of Caleb Williams everywhere. And then you hear stories of other college athletes. There's nothing wrong with getting paid, but you hear stories of other college athletes, and what do? There's other college athletes that are sharing NIL money with other players on their team that aren't good enough to get NIL. What's that say about that person and how they feel about their teammates? They treat it like a real family. You know what I'm saying? So that's my knock on Caleb, and just how he's so arrogant. It's just fun to root against him. That's just how I see it. Jayden Daniels, I'm the biggest Jayden Daniels fan in Packer history. I promise you that. I love that dude and how he carries himself. I think Jayden Daniels is kind of a natural born leader. I think he's a player that And I had a question about that because he said he wanted the first touchdown ball. I think they said I don't have an issue with that. Like to take that touchdown ball over the offensive lineman, to me that's not a leadership problem. We may be able to get to that because I think that is in our Patreon group. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of hit on some of the games. These are games I'm focused on this week. The Buffalo Bills-Baltimore Ravens game should be a good one on Sunday night. Don't get me wrong, but I'm kind of keying in on all right, what's going on in the NFC and how does it affect these standings right here. So hopefully that makes sense. That's just kind of a preview for this weekend. One or two of the guys may join me here in a minute if the power don't go out, but until then, we're going to fly solo. This also came down the pike. I'm going to give a shout out to Smitty. Smitty on Twitter, obviously, he's always in the chat here. He tagged me in this as well. And so I'm going to have to drop my logo down here. That's a good thing too, by the way. So check this out. This is one of those XY charts, I think is what it's referred to as. I got to drop the banner too. Boy, I was not prepared. Here we go. So on the left, running vertically, you've got blown block percentage, okay? And then on the bottom, running horizontally, you've got pressure percentage allowed. So this is a combination of blown block percentage and pressure percentage allowed, with the higher being the better, right? So, and they've got it adjusted to where the lower numbers are at the top is what I'm saying. If you're watching here on YouTube, vertically and to the right is obviously more valuable than the lower left, okay? Boys, at the top of the heap, Zach Tom. Look at Zach Tom. I mean, he is in the far upper right. He's obviously right there. I mean, he's had 0 blown blocks according to this table here. I think it's a table, maybe a graph. I'm not that well educated. And the only person that's higher than him on pressure percentage allowed is Lane Johnson. Isn't it hilarious that the only person that's higher than him is the one that they will not tack a sack on for his responsibility there with Rashawn Gary, even though he got a hand on him, and he's the only offensive lineman that moved late on that play. So if you remove that little, or if you added in that little caveat, Zach Tom, hands down the best player on this chart, man. It's pretty wild to see. I'm glad Smitty tagged me in it. Zach Tom is playing outside of his mind. There's good news and bad news to that. The good news is we got one of the best right tackles in the game. The bad news is that man is going to break the bank, right? Now that's what you do though. You're willing to overpay for great. You don't want to overpay for good, right? And Zach Tom, I think it's huge, man. So Smitty, shout out to you, buddy. Thank you for sending that over. Smitty might be in bed. I'm one of those after a bender last night. I don't know. He may be in the chat too. I'm trying to glance around in the chat real quick. Nah, I don't see him in there. So shout out to Smitty for sending that over for sure. And another one too, look at Rasheed Walker. He's kind of right there in the middle. He's just below, I think, what they consider the average line. He's just below that or to the left of that at pressure percentage allowed, but he's just above it. I'm sorry, he's just above it at pressure percentage allowed. He's just below it at blown block percentage. So keep an eye on him too. I mean, it's pretty cool to see. Again, these are offensive tackles, pass protection. You've got two tackles that are playing really good ball right now. One that's just playing outside of his mind in Zach Tom. So that's good stuff there. Another thing I wanted to hit on real quick, how good are our running backs playing? Guys, they're playing solid. This is next gen stats. This is run yards over expected. Okay, rush yards over expected. I like to sort it by attempt because that takes away the one or two big hitters, you know what I mean? And saying, oh yeah, look at all the yards they've gotten as opposed to how many yards per attempt. And what I mean by that is you can have a player come in and play a handful of snaps, quote, get lucky, hit a home run, and his yards are going to be through the roof. But if you break it down per attempt, you kind of get the meat and taters of the statistic here. But I just wanted to point out that in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11th spot is Josh Jacobs at 0.82 rushing yards over expected. All right, so he's that in that spot. Right behind him, Emmanuel Wilson at 0.61. So our two running backs right there, borderline top 10 in rushing yards over expected. You talking about a deep running back room, man. That is really exciting right there. That's awesome. And again, you want to worth noting for this week, Aaron Jones is what, 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth in the league at 1.24, playing outside of his mind. Also, we already played Saquon Barkley. He's third at 1.75. So to kind of show you, we already faced a pretty damn tough back, right? In that regard, Jonathan Taylor, just what, 6, 7 in the 8th spot at 1.17. We played him in Indy, right? So faced within the first 4 weeks, we will have faced 3 of the toughest running backs in the league right now as far as rush yards over expected. That's quickly becoming one of my favorite running game metrics there. So pretty cool. Omer in the chat says, Zach Tom is the heart of this O-line. Him and Jenkins continue to lead the way. Rasheed looks as good as he did last half of the season 2023. Sean Ryan is taking a step forward. Morgan looks solid. We got to get Morgan healthy, obviously, but I agree with Sean Ryan, man. Listen, that dude's cranking it up. And sometimes all it takes is a little bit of momentum to turn someone's career around. I hope it happens. We'll find out this week as we try to get the running game going against Minnesota, obviously. Yeah. Professor Cakes. Hell, in this economy, Clayton, everyone's overpaying for crap. Laughing emoji. Ain't that the truth, Bubba? Ain't that the truth? All right, another statistic I wanted to hit on real quick. You guys know I'm talking fast because, like I said, the power could go out any second. I'd like to get in a decent amount of information to y'all. I appreciate y'all making us part of your morning here. Hit that like button if you can. To help other Packer fans find the channel, find the content. Fastest sack recorded throughout the 2024 season so far this year. Obviously, we got 3 weeks played, 2 teams played, 1 game last night. That was the Cowboys and the Giants. I'm assuming that's been updated this morning as well, if there is anything that made the list there, which it doesn't look like nobody did. So, fastest sacks recorded. That's the time of the snap to the time that they sacked the quarterback, right? Look who's on this list, guys. Number 7, J.J. Enagbare, Kingsley Enagbare, 2.66. What's crazy about this is, well, first of all, the Rashawn Gary one should have been in the 2.5s, but for whatever reason, it's not on the list because Lane Johnson wasn't ready. But Kingsley Enagbare on this one, guys, it was a jab step outside and a swim move to the inside to sack the quarterback. Think about that. Jab, swim, and he still got to the quarterback, made 2 moves and got to the quarterback in 2.66 seconds. J.J. Enagbare is one to watch for, okay? Because he might be an up-and-coming star. We seen flashes last year, and then it kind of tapered off at times. Obviously, he hurt the knee there toward the end of the year. But we might have something there with J.J. Enagbare, and they're using him similar to how we use Zadarius Smith. We're starting to line him up in the A and B gaps in our NASCAR package. Many people don't know about this. If you really key in on the tape, and if you go to NFL Pro and you look at who's in the lineup on some of these sacks, there's been many sacks we've generated out of the NASCAR package, meaning, and listen, Hafley may not call it NASCAR. He might call it bunk bed or something. I don't know. But NASCAR package basically means all 4 of your pass rushers are defensive ends. It's another reason why Kenny Clark is getting less snaps right now. And Devontae Wyatt is getting, I don't want to say less snaps, but he's getting not as many snaps as he did last year because they're throwing these edge defenders all on the field at the same time. And you've seen the fruits of the labor last week, man. The problem with that is it makes you vulnerable to the run. So you got to really be careful on where you pick your spots. You do that on a second manageable or a 3rd and 3. If you're doing a 2nd 7 or a 3rd and 3, you might get gashed in the running game, right? Or you might get hit with a screen pass too, because obviously when those guys go out there and they call a NASCAR package, you know their ears are pinned back. They're not really keying in on the screen as much. But I just thought that was worth noting that J.J. Enagbare has recorded the 7th fastest sack this season so far at 2.66, and that did come in week 3. So he's peaking right now. Let's see if we can continue that this week against the Vikings. So, all right, let's do this. Let's jump into the Patreon group here real quick. I'm going to go ahead and kill my camera here so I can read this, and you guys don't see me all up in your business here. Lots are flickering. It may be happening. Joshua Dodge in the Patreon group. And also, I'm going to throw this up real quick for you guys and gals. If anyone's interested in joining our awesome Patreon community, you scan that QR code in the upper right. That'll send you directly to it. If that doesn't work, go to patreon.com/PackerFan Total Access. If that doesn't work, just go to patreon.com and search for Packer Fan Total Access. That'll get you entered into the giveaways as well. And I'm pretty sure we're giving away a Robert Brooks autographed jersey this week during the post-game show after the Vikings game, okay? And what we're going to do is take all of our Patreon members and all of our YouTube members and throw them onto the wheel, the pinky wheel, and spin it and give away that autographed jersey. We do that just a way to give back to those who are helping support the channel. You just got to be a member of one of the three tiers there, or a member here on YouTube, all right? So there is that. Now, first question from the Patreon group. We've got Joshua Dodge. Joshua Dodge says, is the success we're seeing from the secondary seem to be from our guys fitting more into this Hafley scheme, or is it coming from a collective buy-in? Potentially aspects of both. I think you nailed it there at the end. I think it's both. One thing that's 100% certain, Joshua, is last year there was a good chunk of that locker room that was not bought in. One was Jair. That's common knowledge now, right? Another was Devondre Campbell. Now, it's hilarious that the year he went all-pro under Joe Barry, he said the reason he made all-pro was because someone finally used him the correct way. And then the very next year, he's complaining that they're not using him the right way. We're not going to go back down that road. But, yeah, I think there's not a person that I look at on this defense and go, I don't know if they're bought in. They are all 100% bought in. Now, I think some of that comes with the way Goody handled the offseason too. Let's be real here, right? I think Hafley's doing a hell of a job getting guys to buy in. That he is taught, if anyone is willing to pay attention, he has taught a master class on how to motivate and do it in a way where you're not like overly excited and shouting and being boisterous, and that'll only connect with a third of the group. You know, you've got 3 different types of personalities that are going to respond differently to different motivations. Some people respond to that fire on fire approach, right? That jumping on people and just getting absolutely amped up. Others may respond to someone being very knowledgeable about what they're talking about, right? They'll buy in that regard. And the other might be a pat on the back and just showing someone that you care would motivate them, right? I think Hafley has kind of touched all 3 of those aspects of motivation, and he's done it just tremendously. He really has. So I think you're getting huge buy-in. There's no doubt about it. As far as fitting the scheme, I think when you put an emphasis on, hey, look, let's go after the football, as opposed to, hey, keep everything in front of you, and we're going to make them settle for field goals type thing. We're going to control the explosives. The pendulum can swing in the opposite direction too much. What I seen based off the tape Last year, the pendulum swung too much into man coverage, and we were getting burnt in man coverage. The year before, the pendulum was maybe a little too far in the direction of playing quarters, right? So we played fifth most single high, which is middle field close, typically cover 3 or cover 1 man last year. Now, you didn't see as many stunts last year, although we did run stunts. This year, what you're seeing with Hafley is that overload front. We ran damn near 0 overload fronts. And what I mean by that is 3 pass rushers on one side of the center and 1 in a wide 9 opposite. That's straight out of Robert Saleh, his playbook. That's his bread and butter for generating pressure. And you can do a lot of things. You can linebacker scrape. You can go TE. You can go ET. You can do a lot of stunting in that regard. And it also isolates your wide 9 on one side, which in our case is Rashawn Gary, with the right tackle. Even though we ran the overload, we showed the tape yesterday, they were still double teaming Rashawn Gary with the guard, and he couldn't get there. They were also chipping. We showed a graphic yesterday where Rashawn Gary, I got it right here. He's being chipped 20% of his pass rush snaps. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 6th in the league, actually tied for 5th with Max Crosby. Okay. So teams are saying we're not letting 52 wreck our game plan. And that's why his PFF grades are down. That's why his pass rush statistics are down. But here's what you're doing. You're occupying 2 hats on one play. That's why you're seeing the pressure hit home from other spots too. Now, there's a lot of conjecture out there of people saying Preston Smith's getting double teamed more than Gary because a statistic dropped on that. They're conveniently leaving out the chipping. And here's the other thing that they're conveniently leaving out. Preston is manufacturing double teams at times. Jeff Hafley is running ET stunts. Do you understand what an ET stunt is? And I'm trying not to be an ass on social media and go that deep into going, think about what you're saying here, bub. You're kind of, like LaFleur said, you're exposing yourself, not understanding what's actually happening on the field. When Coach Hafley runs these ET stunts, they're designed for the edge to go first. When the edge goes first, his job is to take the tackle into the guard with him. That is a manufactured double team, so the defensive tackle can loop around off of him. That's an ET stunt. When it's a TE stunt, the defensive tackle will engage with the double team, take the guard into the tackle space, and the edge will loop around. We're doing a crap ton of ET stunts right now. So that's why it's showing Preston Smith is getting double teamed more, because we're manufacturing that pressure running off of an ET stunt. So you take that and couple it with the fact of you won't find Preston Smith here on this screenshot because he's all the way down at 9%. Only 9% of the time is Preston Smith getting chipped. And this isn't a knock on Preston. Preston's playing damn good football right now, to be honest with you. I'll show you some stats if we have time here in a minute. But Rashawn Gary, when you're getting chipped, that is a design double team by the offense. It doesn't count as a double team because it's not 2 offensive linemen double team. And a true chip isn't considered a pass block. It's a chip, and then you're out in the pass route. But that's the offense saying you always got to put yourself in the opponent's view, right, or in their shoes. That's the offense saying we've got to make sure 2 guys get hands on 52. As opposed to Preston Smith only at 9%, what's really happening there is that's Jeff Hafley saying, Preston, take that tackle into the guard space and let's allow Devontae Wyatt to loop around, or let's allow Quay Walker to scrape, or let's allow Adrian Cooper to scrape blitz. That's what's truly happening. And that's the problem with statistics. And I put that tweet out there last night saying on X, we can all make stats fit our narrative. We can make stats say what we want them to say. And, I did it with this. You see what I'm saying? So you got to take all the information and put it in the same bowl to get, all right, here's what's actually happening on the field. And God forbid somebody turn on the all 22 and actually watch what the hell's going on. That helps too. So hopefully that answered your question though, Joshua. Next is Trevor Anderson. Trevor Anderson, I'm pretty sure Trevor is the one who sent the 65% photo. You're getting credit even if you didn't, Trevor. I'm pretty sure it was you, though, but I appreciate you. He says, questions on if the defense continues to improve under Hafley. He left the college head coaching job because he wanted to coach ball and not deal with recruiting and everything else, talking about NIL, right? Is there any chance he becomes our Josh McDaniels and sticks around turning down head coach jobs because what we're building here and wanting to be a part of it. Would the Packers pay him top DC money to make that happen? If the results are there, absolutely, Trevor. Here's the issue. It's going to come down to Jeff Hafley. And like you said, the money. I don't have a complete understanding of how the inner workings apply when it comes to how the owners handle coaching changes. I do know you cannot block a promotion, all right? As a coaching staff, you can block a lateral move, meaning if another team comes in and says, Haf, we want you to be our DC, and he wants to be their DC, we have the right as an organization under the owner bylaws with the NFL that we can block that move, right? Now, we can't block a promotion, meaning if he gets an offer to be a head coach, we can't block that move. He can turn it down and we can offer more money, like Trevor's saying, but we can't block the move. That makes sense. So I think, yeah, it would be money well spent if the defense continues to improve. There's still a lot of things to work on, but I think we would all agree turnovers is the most important thing, and Hafley has worked absolute magic with this group. The other thing I was trying to get to on that last question, and it kind of ties in here too, the reason I said everyone was put on notice, it's not like we said Joe Barry was the problem. Let's bring in Hafley and fix everything, guys. We got rid of Devondre Campbell, our starting linebacker, and in the nickel played the large majority of linebacker reps, right? We got rid of Savage, our starting safety, right? We pretty much scrapped everybody in the safety room. Jonathan Owens as well, who was a starting safety most of the year. You understand what I'm saying? We got rid of a bunch of people. So I think Goody kind of put everyone on notice. Like, okay, y'all want to complain about the scheme. All right, Barry's gone. Now you can't complain about that. Oh, by the way, the ones who made the most noise, get the hell out of the building. Other than Jair Alexander, because he could potentially be a superstar. Be who you can afford to be, right? That's the old saying that applies to Jair. So, yeah, to answer your question, Trevor, I think that they would be willing to offer more money if the results are there when it comes to keeping Hafley. Also, I could also see Hafley being kind of like, okay, if the money's very similar, I don't want to be a head coach just yet. Let me stay here and finish what I'm doing as DC. That has happened before. So I'm trying to think it happened actually this past year, I think. I can't remember who it was, but there was a DC that decided to stay put because he didn't want to take the head coaching job just yet. And he did get a healthy pay raise. Now, the thing where the lines get a little bit blurry, another promotion, the way I understand it, is if someone offers him the DC job and assistant head coach position. That's technically a promotion. So that's another way that you could probably – that's the way I understand it. I could be wrong. That's how it's been explained to me. And you've got Rich Bisaccia as your assistant head coach. So that you would have to demote Bisaccia and promote Jeff Hafley. But again, you guys check that, do your own research on it, because I'm not 100% sure if that's true. I haven't seen a situation where the headline of the story that applied, but I've heard people mention that getting an assistant head coaching defensive coordinator job is a promotion from just plain defensive coordinator. So that's where that sits. Let's go on to the next question. Bang. Randy Cleavers, is it just me or are we actually getting pressure with 4? We are, Randy. That, and we're also getting pressure with 5, right? It's very seldom that we're bringing 6. I don't know if I've seen us bring 7 other than like a 4th and 2 or 4th and 1 situation so far, and you're kind of run blitzing in that regard. The majority of the pressure you're getting, from what I remember, and I haven't charted this specifically, but from what I remember watching the tape, is those overload looks, which is just a 4-man rush. And occasionally, like I said, you'll run a scrape off of that, or you'll bring a linebacker in as well. That becomes a 5-man rush. Also, you may bring a 6-man rush, which is what we call, in some cases, a green dog blitz, okay? With the green dog blitz, that simply means your man coverage on the running back, and if he stays in and block, you have the freedom to rush. You got to be careful with that, because if he chips and leaks and you're now in the pass rush, that dude's running butt naked through the trailer park. So you got to be real careful with that. But, yeah, that's definitely the case, Randy. I would love to see 33rd team had a table last year that charted all this in real time. It's since been removed from their site. So we're kind of flying blind there. I'm sure there's a website that we can find and subscribe to. The problem is I'm subscribed to like 30 different websites, and that stuff really, really adds up. Boy, the lights are about to go again. Getting ugly out here. Again, if the stream goes down, guys, thanks for hanging out, and we'll hopefully see you on the other side. But, yeah, pressure with 4. I think we are seeing that because we're not just going. Last year we do a lot of double wide 9s on the outside and a 3-2 tech, right? When we were in pass rush situation, that's what we were doing. This year you're doing more of that overload in those pass rushing situations. So that is something that Hafley has done much better than Joe Barry, no doubt. All right, next question. Trevor Anderson again. I think Jayden Daniels showed poor leadership on his first touchdown pass of his career. I get it was his first touchdown, but it was to a lineman who likely will never have one again, and Daniels will have plenty more. In the postgame, he was asked how they decided who would get the ball, and he was like, I'm getting the ball. Just seems selfish to me, and the way he said it came off poorly. Thoughts, Clayton? I didn't hear him say it, Trevor, but if the argument or your stance is the offensive lineman should get the touchdown ball, and it was Jayden Daniels, a quarterback's very first career touchdown pass, I can't. As Ricky Bobby said, I'm too drunk to taste that chicken. Right? The offensive lineman should want Jayden Daniels to have it, right? Now, as far as how he comes off in the interview, I didn't hear him say it. Maybe he did say, no, screw that guy. I want the ball. Yeah, that's wrong if he did that. But if he simply said, I'm getting the ball, I don't have a problem with it. That's just me, though. So there are your Patreon questions. I'm really excited about Jayden Daniels, too, to see if he can keep this up. He kind of feels like the C.J. Stroud of this year, right? C.J. Stroud kind of burst on the scene and played really well. And I don't want to sit here and try to toot my own horn or anything, but I'm not into player evaluation. That's not what I do. I don't want to ever convince anyone that my strength or anything that I care too much about is I'm going to look at this group of players. Oh, he's better than him. He's better than him. He's better than him. I'm not a scout. I'm not. I try to pick up on little things that I think are important. And I had a listener ask me for 2 straight years, hey, rank the quarterbacks in this year's draft. And I won't do it unless somebody asks me. They asked me the year before, and I'm trying to think who was it that I had ranked. That was the year before it was C.J. Stroud. I said I would have C.J. Stroud. However, there were other quarterbacks that were ranked ahead of him on my draft board. And you go, how does that make sense? It makes sense because I'm using data to create that draft board. It's not my personal opinion. I remove all of my personal emotions out of my draft board. But when you ask me to say, all right, watch these players, who do you like best? If I've got time, I'm willing to jump in there and dive into it and say, yeah, here's how I got it ranked. C.J. Stroud was hands down my favorite quarterback in that draft. Well, Bryce Young was ahead of him, but I said the caveat I used was I would have to take Bryce Young over C.J. Stroud because he's played, I felt like, a lot tougher opponents. And I know Big Ten people are going to hate me there, but I said C.J. Stroud is the better passer of the football. This year, my board showed Caleb Williams. I've been as the number 1 quarterback. That's what the data suggested. And I've been very, very vocal about this. If someone personally asked me, do you like Caleb Williams as a top quarterback? Absolutely not. Elite arm talent, just can't trust him in the decisions he's made and the way he's carried himself to lead my organization. Just can't do it. So for me, it was Jayden Daniels was my top quarterback. So, and listen, he could fall off the edge of the earth here, and Caleb Williams can soar right to the top, right? That could happen. We're not ruling that out. But that's just how I seen it, though. So, all right, let's get into some defense talk, if that's all right with you guys and gals. Let's talk about what we've been doing coverage-wise. I'm going to go full screen for this. And let me just check the chat. I'm trying to check on the chat in case we get any supers. I don't want you guys to waste your money and me not even read your comment. Appreciate y'all hanging out in there. It's so hard to actually comment on the chat when you're flying solo. I know I've said it 1,000 times. I'm always going to continue to say it because I don't want y'all to think that I'm ignoring you, okay? So here it's going to get a little bit small. Hopefully you guys and gals can still read it. I wanted to get that NFL stat up there. So this is the Packers safeties and corners, okay? And I've got it separated by coverage scheme, all right? So here are your coverage grades. This is the man coverage column, so it ends right here, okay? This is your man coverage grades, okay, for this season. Who is playing who's grading out highest according to PFF in man coverage this season? I can actually probably bring this in real quick just to make it a little easier for right now. Yeah, that helps. Okay, so here we go. In man coverage right now, and you have 102 coverage snaps. Keyshawn Nixon leads the way at 69.7. Isn't that wild? So Hafley's teaching of his technique of man coverage, Coach Haddad talked about this. We had Coach Haddad on the show a couple times, and he talked about attending Jeff Hafley seminars because Jeff Hafley was in Boston College coaching, right? And he was doing some coaching seminars in the area. Coach Haddad, Chris Haddad, coaches high school with his dad and his brother just about 20 minutes outside of Foxborough. So he was in the area. He got to attend some of Jeff Hafley's coaching seminars. And he talked about how he coaches technique in man coverage way different than other DCs, than other defensive coaches. And this is why people like Richard Sherman, whether you like him or not, and other people who have been coached by Jeff Hafley, they're talking about, man, this guy, he's the DB whisperer. He knows how to coach up DBs on technique and specifically corners. Right? Keyshawn Nixon seems to be responding here when it comes to we got Jacob joining the show here now too. Keyshawn Nixon seems to be responding really, really well when it comes to coverage in man coverage this year. 69.7 leading the way, guys. That is nothing to that's something you really need to key in on. He's been targeted 4 times too, and he's given up 0 receptions. So keep that in mind. I can't get the passer rating when targeted on PFF in man coverage. I can get it in zone, but not man. Ask them. I have no idea why. But nonetheless, Keyshawn Nixon leads the way. Second is Carrington Valentine. You guys remember when we were kind of like, man, why did Carrington get some of those snaps that they took away from Eric Stokes? It's kind of odd. Maybe this is why. Carrington Valentine's only had 26 man coverage snaps, but his grades is 64.2. Xavier McKinney has been in man coverage 123 snaps, 64.1. All right. Evan Williams, 18 times what they consider man coverage, 62.1. Corey Ballantyne, God love him, only 1 snap. Only snap he's played this year, I believe, 60.0, right? Eric Stokes, wonder why the snaps dropped. Maybe they were looking to play a little more man coverage that game. I don't know. 98 coverage snaps in man coverage, 56.3. Look at Jair Alexander in man coverage game. 124 man coverage snaps. PFF has him at a 41.4. And again, think back to week 1. Everybody's talking about we need to have him follow. Not everybody. I shouldn't say that. Some people are saying we should have him follow Justin Jefferson. He's had success doing that before. Last time we played him, I think Jair didn't even play in the game. Corey Ballantyne shut him down, and they didn't have Corey. They damn sure didn't have Corey following him, right? So careful what you wish for, because week 1, we had him follow A.J. Brown, and he got absolutely cooked, all right? Again, his coverage grade 41.4 in man coverage this year. Javon Bullard is 28.3. Keep in mind, Javon Bullard has been playing a lot of post safety. I don't know if he's played more post than spur or box safety, but nonetheless, he has struggled in man coverage big time at a 28.3. I don't feel like that's his strength, though. His strength is attacking the ball carrier, making tackles, that type of thing. Personally, that's just the way I see that. So I know we got Jacob in here with us. Jacob, obviously you jumped in a little late here. We're talking man coverage right now. What do you think of those coverage grades? Does that surprise you? Anything catch you off guard?
I mean, yeah, a lot of that surprises me. I've dogged Nixon quite a bit. O'Mara comes in here talking the same thing, basically says got to give Nixon credit as much as I want him out of the secondary. He's done okay. I think he's done more than okay, to be honest, being by far, I think, our best coverage grade with the snap counts he has there. And then, yeah, obviously I hate seeing those bottom 3 the way they are. We talked about how that'd be the strength, is if Jair was old Jair, Stokes made a step, and Bullard just, was maybe a rookie phenom. But
right.
There's certain parts of each one of those games where that coverage grade, it's scary, but it doesn't paint the whole picture of what they bring to the table.
Yep.
And I think, like you said, Bullard's he's just a good football player. You can't, I look at that grade and it doesn't convince me he's not a good football player. It's the same with Jair. And I've seen spurts out of Stokes where I think he's at least made a step from what he was. So parts of it scare me a little bit. Parts of it doesn't.
Yeah, I understand completely, man. It makes sense. And again, it doesn't mean Ja can't cover him, man. All it means is he's not responding the way that Keyshawn is. He's not responding the way that Carrington is. That's for sure when it comes to the way Jeff Hafley is teaching man coverage, right? And again, I see it. There was a comment down here said right here, Omer says, yes, if Jair is as bad as week 1 versus JJ, he'll have another 200 plus this game. Jair looked good the past 2 games. Again, when we broke down the interceptions, and I've got someone in our Patreon group who's actually keyed in on that for us. I'll try to pull it up on my phone. I want to give them a shout out because I really, really appreciate anytime someone can do this type of stuff to help me out that want to. I would never ask anybody that didn't want to, but it was Joshua Dodge actually was asking about coverages resulting in interceptions. We're charting that and saying, okay, where are all these turnovers coming from? And he is now starting to chart that for us, Jacob, which I'm really excited about so far this year. Okay. The Eagles game, Xavier McKinney got an interception in Tampa 2. That is zone coverage. In the Eagles game, it was supposed to be nickel 245. I had a typo. Thank you for copying it number for number too, Josh. That way the mistake, I can correct it as we go, as opposed to you assuming I made a mistake there. But it was nickel 425, shell cover 4, could have been zone match. Okay. Jair interception there. That was another zone coverage. Against the Colts, nickel 425, cover 1 man, double linebacker fire. That was Xavier McKinney making the interception. He was in a zone, but it was a man coverage call. Okay. And then also in the Colts, 4-3 over, cover 6 hybrid, Wilson with the interception. That's a zone coverage. And then deep cover 3 match under. That would have been a zone coverage as well with some match principles with Williams' interception. That was actually a Hail Mary. We'll throw that one out. So you could see through the first 2 games, zone coverage is leading the way in interceptions. The Titans game, we had 2 interceptions, right? I think, did we have 2 or 3? Yeah, we had 2. 4-3 over, cover 3 buzz. That was the pick 6 by Ja. That was a zone coverage call. And then nickel 4-2-5, cover 3 match, zone coverage call with match principles. So zone coverage, I'm telling you, is how you get interceptions. And again, we are not running a whole lot of man coverage under Hafley. We're running a lot more cover 3 than anything, which I love. If you look at the coverage chart here, as I breathe on the microphone, 32% of the snaps we're playing cover 3, and 19% we're playing cover 1. So if you break it down in strictly man coverage, right, you've got, 32% of the – nope, I'm sorry. It'd be 20 – it'd be 20% of the snaps we're in man coverage, okay? So only 20% of the time we're playing man, and then the rest of the time we're playing zone. So that just shows you we're leaning on zone really, really heavy.
Can you really quick break down what zero coverage is? Because I've been hearing a lot about that between Flores and what Hafley's doing and a few other of kind of top defense.
Yeah, absolutely. People get mixed up on zero coverage because there's a lot of talking heads out there and some that don't know what the heck they're talking about. You got to be real careful because people try to bend information to fit what it is, the narrative they're trying to get. They want this player gone. They want that coach gone. Will ignore all of the good things and focus on the bad things, and vice versa, right? That's why it's important to tell the whole story. Cover 0 is real simple. Cover 0 means everyone who's in coverage is in man coverage, and there is no safety help over the top, which by default means everyone else is either in man coverage or blitzing. Okay, so like if we come out in a nickel 4-2-5 and we run cover 0, I call it goose. I've always called it goose. Big goose egg up top. There's nothing up top, right? So if you're running cover 0 man, okay, and you're running your nickel 4-2-5, it means the safeties are either manned up on someone and backers are blitzing, or it means the backers are manned up on someone and the safeties are blitzing. So essentially what it means is cover 0, when you hear cover 1, cover 2, cover 3, cover 4, whatever the number is after it, that means that's how many deep zones are playing on that defense, okay? So that's simply what that means. There are no deep zones on cover 0, and it's a very, very aggressive man coverage defense.
Right. So I was gonna follow up by just saying it looks like other than the Vikings and the Raiders and then the Titans, not a lot of teams tend to do a lot of that. Is that because that's a big risk, big reward type situation? Like you said, everybody's manned up. Do you see us being able to take advantage of that? Do you see a Christian Watson type revenge game where he's, able to just do a few quick moves, get downfield, and just burn some of these slower guys?
Absolutely. You've got to be aware of it, but it's really important, Jacob, even though they are running it more than anyone, they being the Vikings, we kind of talked about this yesterday, even though they're running it more than anyone, you've got to be aware that it's only 10% of their defensive snaps. Right. So what you want to focus on is what coverage are you going to be facing the majority of the time? And the coverage that you're facing the majority of the time of the Vikings is cover 2 and cover 4. And some of those are blended in together. So essentially what you've got is 51% of their defensive snaps are probably played with a shell coverage, meaning too high safety. Now, they may not show too high safety pre-snap, and that's where people were getting mixed up with Barry last year. Everybody just wanted to regurgitate the drunken podcasters' rants about we're playing too soft, we're playing too soft. And it's like, you guys are not focused on what's actually happening. They're showing too high shell, but they're late rotating into single high. So that's why it's important to understand what's the actual coverage. That's what's truly shell, not just pre-snap shell, if that makes sense. So, yeah, 51% of the time they're in some form of shell coverage, whether it's cover 2 or cover 4. But, yeah, that 10%, you got to be aware of it, because when they hit you with a zero blitz, if you're not prepared, that's what they did to C.J. Stroud, you can see it takes you completely out of that drive. But that's the end of hour 1. For those of you listening on the pod, we'll see you on the other side for hour 2. We appreciate y'all.